So let's start with our landing mechanic. So for this, we'll first need to go to our Dragon Combat BT behavior tree class. Let's add in a new Blackboard variable called flying. So for this, first we'll add two selectors here, and then one of the selectors is for when the dragon is on the ground, and the other is when the dragon is in the air. So for that, we'll go and add a new boolean value called flying, which is a Blackboard value. So in the selectors, we will add the Blackboard decorator now. So this will be for flying when it is not set. That means we are on ground. And this will be for flying when it is set, which means we are in the air. Now let's go to our GA_fly attack, which we had created in the previous video. So we'll drag our and get the AI controller, dragging from the get owning actor, and from the AI controller we cast it to our dragon_AI controller, which means we are getting the dragon's AI controller. And in this, we'll get the Blackboard. So this Blackboard, we have to set a value. So let's set a value as bool to set the flying Blackboard value which we created previously. And we'll set the boolean value to true, and the string name, we'll create a promoter to a new variable and name it flying string. We should give a default value of flying, which is equal to the Blackboard value. So if we go to our Blackboard value in the behavior tree, the boolean value we created was flying. So we need to give the same name here. Let's end this ability. So as you can see, after the flying value is set, we need to create a new task. Let's name this BT task land. That means we can land on the ground. When we are in there, we just land back to the ground. So let's override another function called event receive execute AI, cast it to a dragon_BP. And then we'll get the character movement. On getting the character movement, we then have to set the movement mode to walking. Once you do that, let's get the controller, cast it to a dragon AI controller, and then we again set the Blackboard value here. So we need to get the Blackboard and set the value as bool, and we'll just set it to false. That means we are on the ground now. So on setting it to false, we need to promote this value to flying string. Compile, save, and name this fly, which is similar to the Blackboard value. And we set the bool as false. So this is what basically the BT task_land does. We set the movement mode to walking, and then we set the Blackboard value to false of flying. We then get the dragon_BP character movement and set the gravity scale to 0. The gravity scale to 1. The gravity scale was 0 in the flying component which were created in the previous video. We set it back to 1, which means the dragon will fall back to the ground. And then we finish this particular task by calling finish execute with a success boolean value. So going back to the dragon_combat, we call the BT task land. Let's just name this scan land, and then we'll have a wait value of 2 seconds. So on playing, we can see that the dragon enters into combat mode. It flies up. As you can see, the dragon is flying above the ground, and then it falls back right into the ground. But there is some discrepancy in the animation, and also the second time the dragon doesn't go back up. This is because we haven't reset the gravity scale back to 0 once the dragon is on the ground. So for this, in the takeoff, in the anim graph, that is dragon underscore anim bp, we'll go to the takeoff notify, and then we'll set a gravity scale of 0 here for the character movement. So whenever it plans to take off and the takeoff animation runs, that means it can go up in the air. So now that the gravity scale will be 0 and the dragon moves up, and the gravity scale will turn to 1 when it is about to land, and it falls back to the ground. But still the animation is a bit off, so we need to take care of the animation now. So for this, let's go back to our dragon underscore anim bp and go to our update animation method, animation blueprint, and here we'll cast it to our dragon underscore bp. We'll get the character movement, and once you get the character movement, you need to check if it is falling. So we created two new boolean values, is falling and is flying. Let's set the is falling of the anim bp to the is falling value of this particular character movement. Now let's create another sequence and cast it, get the character movement, and see if it is moving on ground. And we'll set this boolean value to a newly created boolean called is flying in the anim graph. Once you have these two values, is falling and is flying, we know if the dragon is moving up or moving down. So we go back to our anim graph state machine, and we create a new state called flying. So this state can transition if is flying is true. So we'll click on that particular arrow, and then we'll drag the is flying to the other boolean. So let's check this one. So if it is on the air, we need to run this stationary fly stationary animation. So let's drag that into the our anim graph and then connect it to the output animation pose. So this is what the flying state does. Let's create another state called landing. So once we are on the air, we come back to the ground. So we need to have an animation graph for the same. So let's click on the arrow and drag the is flying, and we'll negate this value by choosing not, so not boolean, and then enter it, and then attach it to can enter transition. Let's go back, and in the landing state, we check for an animation where the dragon moves from stationary to a landing, which we have here, fly stationary to landing. Let's drag and drop this. That takes care of the landing animation. So as soon as you go to the landing animation, you need to return back to idle. So in order to return back to idle, we need to know if the dragon is, so the dragon should not be in air and the dragon should not be falling. So we need to check the not boolean of both of this. That means we are on the ground safely, and then we get an add and enter and can enter transition and attach it to can enter transition. Let's go back to our anim graph and check everything's all right. Okay. So on playing, it looks like the dragon initial state so it looks like it the starting animation is flying. So we go back to our anim bp, check if something's wrong with our state. Okay, and in the update animation method of the event graph of anim bp, it looks like is flying is set to false. So we need to take the negation value of is moving on ground and attach it to is flying. That means we know that we are not on the ground. Okay, now it's in the idle state. We enter into combat mode. So the dragon flies up with the flying animation, and then it runs and it comes back to the ground. So everything looks clean. And that's it for this video. In the next video, we'll look at adding a VFX to our dragon. Thank you.